If you talk to elite founders, CEOs, and high-performance entrepreneurs, there's one supplement that keeps coming up over and over again. Not caffeine, not creatine. Ashwagandha. But here's the controversial part. Some scientists say it can lower stress hormones, boost brain performance, and even increase testosterone. Others say the effects are overhyped and partly placebo. So, what's the truth? Today, we're breaking down 3 scientifically backed, but still controversial, benefits of ashwagandha and why so many high performers are quietly using it. Let's start with the benefit that made ashwagandha famous. Entrepreneurs live in constant cognitive warfare. Deadlines, high-stakes decisions, financial risk, uncertainty, and all of that activates one hormone, cortisol. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. In small amounts, it's useful. But when cortisol stays high for long periods, it can lead to burnout, anxiety, poor sleep, reduced decision quality. This is where ashwagandha enters the conversation. Multiple clinical studies suggest ashwagandha can significantly reduce cortisol levels and improve perceived stress. In several human trials, people taking ashwagandha showed major drops in stress scores compared to placebo. Researchers believe it works by regulating something called the HPA axis. That's the system connecting your brain, hormones, and stress response. When that system is more balanced, your body becomes more resilient to stress. Not stress-free, but stress-resistant. And that's exactly what high performers need. But here's where the controversy starts. Some studies show ashwagandha working no better than placebo, meaning expectation and psychology might play a role. In other words, the science is promising, but not unanimous. Still, for entrepreneurs under constant pressure, even a moderate reduction in cortisol could mean clearer thinking, fewer emotional decisions, higher resilience to burnout. And that leads to the second controversial benefit. Ashwagandha is sometimes marketed as a natural nootropic, meaning a supplement that improves brain performance. But unlike flashy, smart drugs, the effects appear more subtle and systemic. Several randomized studies show improvements in things like reaction time, working memory, attention span, cognitive flexibility. Participants taking ashwagandha performed better on cognitive tests compared to placebo groups. Researchers think this may happen through several mechanisms. First, ashwagandha may influence neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin. These chemicals regulate motivation, mood, and focus. Second, it may promote something called neuronal plasticity. That's your brain's ability to adapt, learn, and form new connections, which is critical for people making complex, strategic decisions every day. Think about it. Entrepreneurs constantly have to evaluate risk, process massive information, pivot strategies quickly. That requires strong executive function. But again, the research is still debated. Many studies on ashwagandha and cognition are small or short-term. So some scientists argue the evidence for strong nootropic effects is still preliminary. Translation: the results look promising, but we don't yet know how powerful the effect really is long-term. Still, there's one benefit that might explain why so many high performers feel a real difference. And it's also the most controversial one. This is where the conversation gets heated. Some studies show ashwagandha may increase testosterone levels in men. In one randomized trial, participants taking ashwagandha experienced significant increases in testosterone and luteinizing hormone. Another study observed around a 14 to 15% increase in testosterone compared to placebo. That's not steroid level change, but it's biologically meaningful. Why does that matter? Because testosterone influences more than muscle. It affects energy levels, motivation, competitiveness, risk tolerance. traits that are often associated with entrepreneurial behavior. Some long-term studies also reported improvements in overall quality of life and vitality. But again, critics point out something important. Some trials show hormone increases without major changes in performance or well-being. So skeptics argue, just because testosterone rises slightly doesn't necessarily mean productivity or success improves. In other words, the biological change is measurable, but the real-world impact is still debated. Still, many entrepreneurs report something interesting when they take ashwagandha consistently. Not a stimulant effect, not a caffeine-like boost, but a stable, calm energy, less anxiety, better sleep, more resilience under pressure, which might actually be the real performance advantage. So here's the honest conclusion. Ashwagandha isn't a miracle pill. But the science suggests it may influence three systems that matter a lot for high performers: stress hormones like cortisol, cognitive performance, and brain function, hormonal balance, and energy. That combination could help explain why so many founders, executives, and high-pressure professionals are experimenting with it. But the key word is may. Because while the research is promising, the magnitude of the effects still varies from person to person, which is exactly why the topic remains both scientifically interesting and controversial. And that raises an even bigger question. Some researchers believe ashwagandha has several lesser-known effects that could be even more interesting for entrepreneurs. Things like sleep optimization, anxiety regulation, recovery from mental fatigue.